The night everything changed. Have you ever felt like someone touched your soul before you even knew their last name? Like one look could steal the ground from under your feet, and suddenly your entire world was no longer yours? That's how the story of Emily Carter began. Not with a bouquet of flowers or a love song, but with a stranger's gaze that tore through her carefully built walls. At just 21, she was still piecing her life together between college textbooks, long commutes, and endless shifts behind a polished mahogany bar. Emily worked at the upscale Luna Bar, tucked inside the iconic Majestic Hotel on the edge of Miami Beach. It was the kind of place where champagne cost more than her monthly rent, and where she served cocktails to the rich, famous, and untouchable. To them, she was just the girl behind the counter, polite, efficient, invisible. Until that night, the golden light of a late March sunset cast a warm glow across the shoreline when he walked in. He moved with quiet confidence, like the ocean parting for him. Tousled brown hair, tanned skin, and those eyes, vivid green, calm and dangerous at once. He headed straight for the bar and looked directly at her. "Good evening," he said in a voice that felt like velvet and thunder. Emily's heart tripped. She looked up and for a moment forgot how to speak. "Good evening, sir. What can I get you?" He rested his arms on the bar, tilted his head slightly and smiled. "Surprise me. If you could order any drink in the world right now, what would it be?" She blinked. No one had ever asked her that. Not here. Not in this world where she existed only to blend in. "Probably a passion-fruit caipirinha," she replied, hesitating. "It's sweet and tangy at the same time. Real. Honest. No need to pretend to be more than it is." His lips curved into something dangerously soft. "Make me one, and tell me why it matters to you." Emily mixed the drink with practiced hands, but her pulse betrayed her calm. His presence unsettled her, not in a threatening way, but in a way that felt like destiny shifting course. When she handed him the glass, their fingers touched. Briefly. Electricity danced up her arm. "I'm Ethan Blackwell," he said, offering his hand. "Emily Carter," she replied, and something in the air between them changed. That night, Ethan didn't order another drink. He didn't flirt. He stayed until closing, talking with her during short breaks, listening with genuine interest as she spoke of her college dreams, her mother Grace, a housekeeper who raised her alone, and her part-time classes in business administration. It wasn't flirtation, it wasn't seduction, it was connection. As she cleaned the bar at the end of the shift, Ethan stood and said, "Dinner, tomorrow night, just us." Emily froze. Logic screamed no, but something in her chest, hope, maybe, whispered yes. "Okay," she said, her voice barely audible. The next evening felt like something from a dream. Emily wore her best dress, black, simple, fitted. When Ethan arrived to pick her up, he looked like he belonged on the cover of a men's fashion magazine. His smile, though, was soft and entirely hers. The restaurant overlooked the sea. Everything was pristine, elegant, expensive. Emily felt small, almost out of place. But Ethan had a way of making her feel like she belonged there, like maybe she was never meant to be anywhere else. "Tell me about you, the real you," he said after they ordered. So she did. She told him about the nights her mother worked 3 jobs to put food on the table, about staying up late to study, about dreaming of a life she wasn't born into. Ethan listened like every word mattered, and when she finally asked about his life, he hesitated. "My family's in real estate. I was born into money, but I spent most of my life trying to prove I was more than just a last name." "And did you?" He gave a sad smile. "I'm still trying." They walked along the beach after dinner, barefoot in the sand, the city lights shimmering on the water. And when Ethan stopped, turned to her, and gently cupped her face, it felt like the world stood still. "Emily, I know this sounds crazy, but I haven't stopped thinking about you since last night. I want to be with you, really be with you," he whispered. She knew what he meant, knew what he was asking, and she also knew she was a virgin. This was uncharted territory. But when she looked into his eyes, fear melted. "Yes," she whispered. They spent the night together in the presidential suite. And it wasn't just sex. It was tenderness, vulnerability, something deeper than lust. Ethan held her like she was made of glass and kissed her like a promise. And when she fell asleep tangled in silk sheets and warm arms, Emily felt whole. But the next morning she woke up alone. The suite was quiet. His scent lingered, but his clothes were gone. No note, no goodbye. Just a message from the hotel manager. Mr. Blackwell checked out at 6 a.m. He left instructions for you to stay until 2 p.m. Emily stood in that vast, luxurious room with trembling hands and an aching chest. He left. No explanation, no warning. Just gone. Emily didn't go home that morning. She wandered through the city like someone waking from a dream, trying to remember who they were. Her skin still held his touch, his scent, his words that had sounded so true. But Ethan was gone, without a trace, without goodbye. On the bus back to her small apartment in Little Havana, Emily stared at the strangers around her, each one lost in their own world. None of them knew she had left a piece of her soul in a luxury hotel suite. None of them saw the young woman who, for one night, had believed she was worthy of a fairy tale. In the following days, she tried to move on. She returned to work at Luna Bar, pretending nothing had changed. But everything had. Her laughter was gone. Her lightness disappeared. Every drink she mixed, every table she cleaned, brought back that moment, that gaze, that kiss. Ethan didn't return. A week later, she did something she never thought she would. She looked for him. Emily remembered the name of his company, Blackwell Developments, a real estate empire in the heart of downtown Miami. She used the address he had mentioned during dinner, wore her best outfit, tied her hair back tight, and swallowed her pride. "I need to speak with Ethan Blackwell," she told the blonde receptionist with flawless lipstick. The woman glanced at her from head to toe, eyes sharp like glass. "Mr. Blackwell is traveling, and he doesn't take walk-ins." "It's personal. He knows me." The woman smiled, a carefully sharpened smirk. "Sweetheart, you're not the first one to show up here saying that. He's young, handsome, rich. You girls always think one night means something to men like him." Her words were knives. Emily felt her face burn, her stomach sink. She left the building with trembling legs and one painful truth. She'd been discarded. Just another story. Just another name he'd already forgotten. 2 weeks passed. Emily was walking home from work, exhausted, when something felt wrong. A wave of nausea hit her like cold water in the face. At first she blamed the stress, then she denied. But when the days went by and her period never came, she knew. Deep down she had always known. With a racing heart, she bought a pregnancy test from a pharmacy far from home, her hoodie pulled up to hide her face. She entered her apartment, locked herself in the bathroom, and waited. 2 lines. 2 red lines that would change everything. Emily sat on the cold tile floor, hugging her knees, trying to breathe. She was pregnant. Pregnant with Ethan Blackwell's child. A man who vanished like he never existed. Pregnant, alone, at 21. And then she cried. She cried for believing, for giving her heart, for her naivete, for the loneliness. She cried for the baby, for not knowing what to do. And after hours on the floor, a voice inside her spoke, weak but steady. "You will get through this." The first person she thought of was her mother, Grace Carter, the woman who had given everything to raise her with dignity. But how could she tell her she was pregnant by a man who disappeared? Emily didn't tell her. Not yet. She held that truth like a quiet secret, one that grew silently inside her. She spent days researching pregnancy, costs, options. She considered for a second not going through with it. But something stopped her. A deep feeling. A love that was already forming before the first kick. She needed a plan. She couldn't stay at Luna Bar. Soon her belly would start to show, and pregnant women didn't mix well with champagne and demanding clients. That's when her mother suggested something unexpected. "Go to Clearwater. Remember my friend Margaret? She has a little room in the back of her house. It's calm, quiet. You can start over without judgment." Emily hesitated. Leave Miami, leave her college, but Grace insisted. "A baby isn't the end, Emily. It's just the beginning of a new road." 2 weeks later, she packed her bags. She quit her job, paused her college enrollment, and with one suitcase and a heart full of fear, she left for Clearwater. Margaret was kind. The room was small but cozy. There, Emily wasn't the abandoned girl. She was just a young woman expecting a child. And there was something freeing in that. She got a job at a small local bakery. The work was hard but honest. The owner, Mr. Thomas, was understanding. "Pregnant women deserve respect. If you can't do something, just let me know." Emily faced nausea, fatigue, uncertainty, but she also experienced magical moments, like the first kick. She was stacking bread on the shelf when she felt it. a soft flutter, like wings inside her belly. "Hi, little one," she whispered, eyes filling with tears. It was real. At 6 months, she found out. It was a boy. Emily cried during the ultrasound, seeing his tiny face, little fingers, the flicker of his heart. When the technician asked if she had a name, she hesitated. She didn't want anything that reminded her of Ethan. Nothing that tied her to that pain. "Liam," she finally said, "and Liam Carter." It sounded strong, clean, just theirs. At night, she talked to her belly, told stories about her day, the bakery customers, the plans she was making. "Your dad didn't want to be here, my love, but that's okay, because I will love you enough for both of us." The storm came on a Wednesday. It was late evening. Emily was in the small kitchen of Margaret's house, trying to heat leftover soup when the first wave of pain struck. It wasn't like the others she'd felt. This one came from deep within, a sharp twist that stole the air from her lungs. She doubled over, holding onto the counter, breath shallow. "Margaret," she called, her voice barely a whisper. The older woman rushed in, eyes widening when she saw the fear on Emily's face. "It's time, isn't it?" Emily nodded, tears springing to her eyes. The pain hit again, fiercer. Her knees buckled, and Margaret caught her. The hospital was small but clean. The nurses moved quickly, placing her in a delivery room, checking vitals, preparing her body and her mind for what was coming. Emily had never felt so alone. As the contractions came closer and stronger, she clutched the sides of the bed and cried out. There was no hand to hold, no one whispering, "You're doing great." No Ethan. She pushed through hours of pain, sweat, and exhaustion. And then, with a final cry that came from every cell in her being, it happened. A wail filled the room. Her son had arrived. "It's a boy, healthy and strong," the nurse said, placing the tiny, wrinkled, perfect baby on her chest. Emily stared at him, tears streaming down her face. He was so small, so warm, so real. "Hi, Liam," she whispered. "Welcome to the world, my love." In that moment, nothing else existed. Not the pain, not the silence Ethan left behind. Only Liam. The days after Liam's birth were a blur. Emily stayed at the hospital for 2 nights. Margaret visited every afternoon, bringing fresh food and soft words. Grace called every morning from Miami, her voice trembling with pride and worry. "You did it, baby. You're stronger than you know." Emily smiled through the fatigue. But deep down, she was afraid, because love wasn't enough to buy diapers, because lullabies didn't pay rent, because even though she adored Liam with every heartbeat, reality was closing in. She returned to Margaret's house with Liam wrapped in a yellow blanket, his tiny hands always reaching for her. The first night at home, Emily didn't sleep. She watched him breathe, watched his little lips twitch, memorized every sound. In the weeks that followed, exhaustion became her shadow. She woke up every 2 hours, learned to rock him with one hand while stirring oatmeal with the other. She cried in the shower so Liam wouldn't see. Her body ached. Her heart felt both full and shattered. There were moments when she looked out the window and whispered, "Where are you, Ethan?" But no one answered. 3 months passed. Emily found a rhythm, not perfect, but enough to survive. She returned to the bakery part-time. Mr. Thomas allowed her to bring Liam in his stroller, set up near the back where customers wouldn't complain. "He's part of the team now," the old man joked, handing her a warm muffin on her first day back. Emily smiled, grateful. She worked mornings, studied at night, and cared for Liam every moment in between. She was building something, even if it was just a fragile beginning. One day, a customer walked in, a young woman named Sophie. She was sweet, curious, and warm. They struck up a conversation while Emily boxed a dozen pastries. Sophie was a photographer, recently moved to Clearwater from Atlanta. When she learned Emily was a single mom, she didn't flinch. She just said, "That makes you kind of a superhero." It was the first time Emily heard those words without sarcasm. They became friends. Sophie helped her take professional photos of Liam, gave her tips on balancing life and creativity. Slowly, Emily began to feel something she hadn't felt in a long time. Hope! Then on a Friday afternoon it happened. Emily was closing the bakery, the smell of cinnamon still in the air, when the bell above the door rang one last time. She looked up and froze. There he was, Ethan Blackwell, standing in the doorway like a ghost she never wanted to see again. Wearing a navy blazer, hair slightly longer, jaw clenched with hesitation. Their eyes met. The tray in her hand slipped, crashed. Pieces of glass and pastry exploded across the floor. He took a step forward. Emily, don't. Her voice was sharp, trembling. You don't get to just walk in here. Liam stirred in the stroller behind her, fussing softly. Ethan's eyes drifted, locked on the child. He paled. Is he? Emily's chest rose and fell with fury, pain, disbelief. He's your son. You left. You disappeared. And I raised him alone. Silence. The kind that screams. Ethan looked at her, then at Liam, then back again. His face crumbled. He looked like he had been punched. I didn't know, Emily. I swear to you, I didn't know. Her tears threatened to fall, but she wouldn't let them. Not yet. You could have called. You could have looked for me. I thought it was just one night. I tried to forget you, but I couldn't. I came back to the bar. You were gone. I didn't know how to find you. She laughed bitterly. You didn't try hard enough. Ethan looked at Liam again, softer now, in awe. He looks like you. Emily turned away, her voice barely a whisper. Please leave. Ethan stepped back, nodded slowly, and walked out. The door shut with a quiet click, and Emily, shaking, knelt to pick up the shattered glass, feeling once again that her world had broken open. That night, Emily barely slept. She rocked Liam gently in the quiet hours of the early morning, but her hands trembled. Her mind was a storm. Memories, words, regrets, and anger tangled into something too heavy to carry, too loud to silence. Ethan was back, and with just one look, he'd shattered the fragile world she had fought to build. The next morning, Margaret noticed her pale face and dark circles. He came back, didn't he? She asked, pouring Emily a cup of tea. Emily nodded, numb. He saw Liam, said he didn't know, but that doesn't excuse it. Margaret sighed. People run, Emily. Some out of fear, some out of guilt. Doesn't mean they get a free pass, but it also doesn't mean they can't change. Emily didn't answer. She didn't have the strength to decide what was forgiveness and what was self-betrayal. Ethan returned 3 days later. This time, he waited outside the bakery, hands in his pockets, as if he didn't trust himself to step through the door again. Emily saw him through the glass, but didn't acknowledge him. At closing, he was still there. I won't push, he said softly. I just want to talk. 10 minutes. Emily hesitated. Part of her wanted to scream. Another part just needed answers. She led him to the park nearby, where the late afternoon sun made everything look too peaceful for the chaos in her heart. They sat on a bench. A breeze rustled the trees. She didn't look at him. Why did you leave? Ethan exhaled slowly, as if he'd practiced the words 100 times. I was scared. That night was different. You were different, and it terrified me. I wasn't ready for something real, so I left. Emily laughed, cold. I gave you everything, Ethan. You took my first time, then vanished. I know, he said, eyes wet. I was a coward. I thought I could forget you, but I never did. I looked for you. I came back to Luna Bar. They said you had quit. I tried to move on, but I couldn't. She turned to him finally. You don't get to come back into my life like this. My son isn't a second chance. Ethan's voice cracked. He's my son too, and I want to be part of his life, whatever it takes. Emily stood up. You don't get to want things, not anymore. You have to earn them. And she walked away, every step burning. Over the next few weeks, Ethan didn't disappear. He stayed in Clearwater, rented a small apartment, sent texts she ignored, left gifts at the bakery, not for her, but for Liam. Books, soft blankets, diapers. He never asked for a response, never demanded attention. He just showed up. One afternoon, Sophie sat across from Emily at the bakery's corner table, sipping a caramel latte. He's trying, she said gently. That doesn't erase what happened, but you should at least let him meet Liam. Emily clenched her jaw. I don't want Liam to get attached and then be abandoned. I won't let that happen. Then let him prove he won't. Sophie's words stuck, not like pressure, but truth. That evening, Emily found herself watching Liam sleep, his tiny chest rising and falling. Would it be fair to keep his father away? Or was she protecting him? She didn't know. But the next day, she sent one text. You can meet him once at the park Saturday, 3 p.m. Ethan's reply came almost instantly. Thank you, I'll be there. Saturday came with sunshine and nerves. Emily sat on the grass, Liam in a stroller beside her, wide-eyed and full of energy. She didn't know what to expect, or how her heart would handle it. Then Ethan arrived, not in a suit, not like the man from the hotel, but in jeans, sneakers, and a nervous smile. He knelt beside the stroller, speechless. Liam stared up at him, blinking. "Hi, buddy," Ethan whispered, his voice breaking. "I'm your dad." Liam tilted his head. Then, to Emily's shock, he reached out, tiny fingers brushing Ethan's nose. Ethan laughed softly. His hands trembled as he gently touched Liam's hand. Emily watched, arms crossed, walls up. But her chest ached. There was no denying it. Something raw and real was unfolding in front of her. They spent an hour together. Ethan held Liam, rocked him, even changed a diaper, clumsily, but with care. And he never once tried to impress Emily. He focused only on his son. When it was time to go, Ethan stood beside her, silent. "Thank you," he said, "for letting me be here." Emily nodded. "Don't make me regret it." He looked her in the eye. "I won't." And for the first time in a long while, she almost believed him. After that afternoon in the park, something shifted. Not a sudden forgiveness, not a romantic reconciliation, but a door, barely open, enough for possibility to slip through. Ethan began visiting Liam twice a week, always at the park, always respectful of Emily's boundaries. He brought books, toys, warm bottles when it was cold, and sat on the grass like any other young father trying to learn what love looks like when it's fragile and new. Emily watched him from a distance. At first, she braced for the moment he'd give up, walk away, prove her fears right. But he didn't. He came back again and again, and little by little, Liam began to recognize him. He'd giggle when Ethan arrived, reach for his arms, nestle his face against his chest, as if some part of him knew. This was his father. One evening, after a long shift at the bakery, Emily found herself sitting on her porch, Liam sleeping inside. She stared at the stars, a cup of tea growing cold in her hands. When Ethan texted, "Liam smiled in his sleep today. I think he was dreaming of milk and superheroes." She laughed softly, against her will. They began texting more often, about Liam, about schedules, about parenting. Then, without planning it, they texted about other things. Books, music, memories. One night, he asked, "What was your favorite thing about that night, at the hotel?" Emily stared at the screen. So many answers came, the candles, the view, the tenderness. But instead, she replied, "The way you made me feel like I mattered." He didn't respond for a few minutes. Then, "You still do. I just didn't know how to show it. I'm learning." She didn't know how to reply, so she said nothing. 2 weeks later, Ethan asked if he could take Liam to the zoo, just the two of them. Emily's instinct was immediate no. But then she saw Liam playing with a plastic giraffe Ethan had brought him the week before, giggling, pointing, saying "Dada" for the first time. Her heart tightened. She said yes. That Saturday, she watched Ethan strap Liam into a car seat like it was made of glass. He sent updates, photos, videos. Liam with an ice cream mustache. Liam staring wide-eyed at flamingos. Liam sleeping on his shoulder, tiny fingers clutching Ethan's shirt. When they returned, Emily opened the door. Ethan stood there holding a sleeping Liam, his eyes soft. He said, "Daddy," twice. Emily reached for her son and their hands brushed. The silence between them was different now. Not cold, not sharp. Just full. A few nights later, Ethan invited her for coffee, just to talk. Somewhere neutral. She said yes against all instincts. They met at a small cafe downtown. The lights were dim. The place was quiet. He looked nervous. "I know I hurt you. I know I don't deserve anything from you, but I want to say something. And I need you to really hear it." She nodded, arms crossed, guarded. "I left because I didn't know how to love someone real. I had only known convenience, temporary connections. You broke that. You made me feel something permanent, and it terrified me." Emily looked away. "I was just another girl to you, Ethan. Admit it." "No." That's what I told myself. But it wasn't true. And I've spent every day since trying to become a man worthy of you and of him. Silence stretched between them. Emily took a slow breath. "You can't just fix this with words." "I know. That's why I'm not asking for anything, not a second chance, not your heart. I'm just asking, let me stay close. Let me be his father. And if someday you see something in me worth loving again, I'll be here." Her throat tightened. She sipped her coffee and didn't answer. But deep inside, something cracked. A wall. A fear. A piece of her that had been waiting for someone to say exactly that. Over the next month, Ethan became more than just a visitor. He changed diapers, learned to cook baby food, stayed up during teething nights when Emily needed rest. He helped her fix a leaky sink, put together a bookshelf, and stayed late just to fold laundry by her side. They didn't talk about love. They didn't rush. But one night, while putting Liam to sleep, Emily caught Ethan staring at her. Not with hunger, not with guilt, but with something quiet and steady, admiration, respect, hope. And in that moment, she realized she wasn't just raising her son. She was raising herself too, into a woman who had survived abandonment, into a mother who loved fiercely, and maybe, just maybe, into someone who could love again. Autumn arrived quietly in Clearwater. The trees changed shade, the air carried a cooler bite, and Liam started wearing little jackets and boots that made him waddle like a penguin. Emily caught herself smiling more, laughing sometimes, even sleeping through entire nights again, when Liam allowed it. And through it all, Ethan remained. Not perfect, not overly romantic, just present. Sometimes they talked late into the night after Liam fell asleep, about childhood, regrets, dreams. Other times they sat in silence, the kind that wasn't awkward but familiar. The kind that said, "I see you. You're safe." But no matter how many walls Ethan patiently chipped away at, one always remained, the one Emily had built to protect her heart. She wanted to believe him, wanted to believe people could change, but every time he touched her hand, looked at her too long, or said something kind, her mind went back to that hotel suite, that empty bed, that morning of betrayal. And yet, she didn't ask him to stop coming around, and that said everything. One night after Liam's first birthday party, a tiny celebration with cupcakes, balloons, and 100 photos, Ethan stayed to help clean up. Emily was wiping icing off the floor when he quietly said, "Can I ask you something?" She didn't look up. "Go ahead." "Do you think we could ever try again? Not for Liam? For us?" The question hung in the air like smoke. Emily's hand froze on the rag. She wanted to scream yes, wanted to believe the story could be rewritten. But the fear, the real fear, was that she'd believe in him again and watch him walk away twice. So she said the only thing she could, "I don't know." Ethan nodded. His voice was calm, but his eyes glistened. "I'll wait." Days passed, then weeks. They stayed in that undefined space, not together, not apart. Co-parents, friends, something more in the quiet moments, something less in the noisy ones. Until the night Emily had a breakdown. Liam had been sick for 2 days, high fever, crying constantly. Emily hadn't slept, hadn't eaten. She rocked him for hours while calling pediatricians, searching symptoms, doubting herself. By midnight, she was sobbing in the hallway, clutching her phone, whispering, "I don't know what to do." That's when Ethan showed up. He didn't knock, just walked in and dropped to his knees beside her, took Liam in his arms, held him gently, then turned to her. "Go to bed, I've got him." "No, Emily, sleep, I'm here." She collapsed into the bed fully dressed, shoes on, makeup smeared, tears still drying. When she woke, sunlight poured through the curtains, and Ethan was in the rocking chair, Liam asleep against his chest, humming something soft. It was the first time she thought, maybe he's already proving it, not with words, but with presence. A week later, Emily was cleaning out an old drawer when she found it, a small folded letter in Ethan's handwriting. She recognized it immediately. It was tucked inside a book he had left at her house months ago. He must have forgotten. Her heart pounded as she opened it. "Emily, if you're reading this, it means I didn't have the courage to say these words aloud. I think I fell in love with you the moment you handed me that drink and talked about passion fruit and honesty. I knew I'd mess it up, I always do. But with you, the regret hit harder than anything I've ever felt. You deserve someone better. I don't know if I can be that person, but I will try every day for the rest of my life to become him. If you'll let me. Love always. Ethan." Emily read it twice, then a third time, and when the tears came, they were not of pain, not entirely. That night, Emily asked Ethan to stay for dinner. They cooked together, played with Liam, watched cartoons, and after the baby was asleep, they sat on the porch, warm mugs in their hands, and let the silence do what it does best. Tell the truth no one dared to say. Finally, she turned to him. "I read the letter." Ethan's face flushed. "I didn't mean for you to—" "I know, that's why I believed it." He looked at her then, like he had in the very beginning. With awe, with hope, she reached for his hand. "I don't know what this is between us, I don't have a plan, but I'm willing to try. A breath left his chest like he'd been holding it for months. You have no idea what that means to me. And in the quiet glow of the porch light, they didn't kiss. They just held hands. Because sometimes the bravest kind of love is the one that takes its time. For weeks, Emily and Ethan lived in the in-between. They weren't together, but they weren't apart either. There were no kisses, no whispered promises in the dark. Just moments. Real, imperfect, raw, where healing happened in silence. Like when they took Liam to the beach and built sandcastles while the tide licked their feet. Or when Ethan stayed up fixing a leaky faucet, and Emily brought him cold lemonade, sitting on the kitchen floor while they talked about everything but their past. It wasn't a love story made of fireworks. It was something slower, something rooted, something trying to grow again. But even the healthiest roots must face storms. It happened on a Tuesday. Emily was at the bakery when a woman walked in, tall, poised, striking. She looked around as if something was missing, or someone. "Can I help you?" Emily asked. The woman gave a slow smile. "You must be Emily. I've heard about you." Emily blinked. "I'm sorry, do I know you?" "No, but I know Ethan. Very well." Her voice was cold, elegant, dangerous. Emily's stomach twisted. "I'm Vanessa Halden," she continued. "Ethan and I were engaged, a long time ago. But he never really let go, did he?" Emily felt like the air had been punched out of her lungs. "That's not possible." Vanessa smiled again, this time with venom. "He didn't tell you? That while you were pregnant and alone, he was in New York, attending fundraisers, smiling beside me, pretending our future was still intact? I was his real life. You were just a detour." The words sliced through Emily. Vanessa leaned closer. "Just be careful, sweetheart. History has a way of repeating itself." And then she left, just like that. Emily waited for Ethan outside his apartment. When he arrived, surprised but not alarmed, she didn't waste time. "Who is Vanessa?" The look on his face was all the answer she needed. "Emily, it's not what you think." "Then tell me, right now, everything." Ethan rubbed his face, exhausted. "We were together years ago. My parents loved her. Our families pushed the engagement, but I ended it. She didn't take it well." "Did you see her after you left me?" His silence was long, too long. "I went to New York after I couldn't find you. And yes, she was there. She tried to pull me back in. But it meant nothing. I was miserable. I left after 2 weeks and never spoke to her again." Emily's heart beat like a war drum. "You vanished. I was pregnant and alone, and you were at Gallus? I didn't know, Emily, if I had—" "But you didn't try hard enough to know." Tears blurred her vision. "I gave you my first everything, and you left me with silence." Ethan stepped forward. "I was broken, cowardly. I didn't know how to be a man back then. But I'm not that version of me anymore." Emily turned away. "I don't know if I believe that." "Then let me prove it." She hesitated. "Not for me, for Liam. For both of you." Emily didn't cut him off completely, but she pulled back. No dinners, no late-night talks, only brief check-ins, co-parenting coordination, polite silence. She needed space. He gave it. But what Ethan did with that space surprised her. He didn't chase. He built. He volunteered at Liam's daycare, helped Margaret fix her old fence, took classes in early childhood development, spent every free hour showing up, without fanfare, without performance. Sophie noticed it first. "He's not doing this for attention, Em. He's doing it for you, because he finally understands what love is." Emily remained quiet, but in her heart she felt the truth settling like dust in a sunbeam. Maybe he really was becoming the man he promised. 3 months later, it was Christmas Eve. The town square was glowing with fairy lights. Families gathered for the tree lighting ceremony. Children giggled in wool hats. Hot cocoa steamed in gloved hands. Emily and Liam stood in the crowd, bundled up. Ethan was nearby holding Liam's favorite stuffed bear. When the lights turned on, the crowd gasped, and Liam squealed in delight. In that moment, Emily turned to Ethan. Their eyes met, and she didn't see the man who abandoned her. She saw the man who returned, who stayed, who earned every inch of trust she had buried under fear. She took a slow breath and reached for his hand. His fingers curled around hers like a promise, not one made with words, but with presence, with growth, with love, the kind that isn't declared but proven. Every single day, the Christmas lights stayed up longer than usual that year. Emily didn't rush to define what she and Ethan had become. There were no labels, no "are we back together" talks. Only quiet mornings filled with pancakes, laughter, and co-parenting that felt seamless. Ethan still lived in his small apartment across town, but every day he came by, helped with bath time, packed lunches, read bedtime stories, and every evening, when Emily stood in the doorway and watched him put on his coat, there was something in her that whispered, "You miss him the moment he leaves." One snowy morning in January, Liam woke up with a fever. Emily panicked, like all first-time moms do. She texted Ethan. He arrived within 20 minutes, still in pajamas, coat barely zipped. They spent the day nursing Liam together, taking turns holding him, watching cartoons, cleaning up small messes, whispering comfort through exhaustion. That night, Liam fell asleep across both of their chests on the couch. Ethan looked at Emily. "I think this is the happiest I've ever been." She didn't speak, just rested her head on his shoulder. And in that quiet moment she realized she felt safe again, not because things were perfect, but because this love had been rebuilt with patience, honesty, and 1,000 small choices. Weeks passed. Life settled into rhythm. Then came the moment neither of them expected. Emily was folding laundry when she noticed the date on the calendar. She was late. A week late. Her breath caught. The test she took an hour later showed 2 lines. Again, she sat on the bathroom floor staring at it, her heart pounding for an entirely different reason this time. Not fear, not shame, just surprise. She waited a day before telling Ethan. They were walking through the park with Liam when she said it quietly. "I'm pregnant." Ethan stopped, looked at her, then down at Liam, who was chasing birds with a squeal of delight, then back at her. "Are you okay?" "I don't know." He nodded, then knelt down and hugged her waist, resting his forehead against her belly. "I'm here. We're in this together, from day one." She believed him. And that changed everything. That night, Ethan cooked dinner. Emily sat on the couch. Liam snuggled beside her and watched the man she once hated now stirring pasta with a tea towel over his shoulder. After dinner, he cleaned up, then walked over, sat beside her, and said, "I know we've come far, and I'm not asking for anything you're not ready to give. But if I could design my life, it would be this. You, Liam, this new baby, a home, a promise." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small box. "It's not a ring, yet, just a key to a house I found. A quiet one, with a yard for Liam, a room for the baby, and space for us to grow, to heal, to live, together. No pressure, just an invitation." Emily took the key, her eyes filled with tears. It wasn't flashy, it wasn't loud, it was perfect, because it meant one thing. He sees our future, not our past. Spring arrived. Emily, Ethan, Liam, and a quiet baby bump moved into the new house. They painted the nursery together, argued over drawer handles, took Liam to the park across the street, started a family journal where they wrote a memory every night, no matter how small. One evening, while Liam slept and the breeze moved through open windows, Ethan held Emily in the kitchen. No music, no big speech, just them. "I love you," he whispered. "Not for who you were when we met, but for the woman you became when I was gone, and for the strength you've taught me since I came back." Emily smiled. "I love you too, not for your promises, but for your actions." They kissed. Soft, certain, the kind of kiss that says, "We made it, and we're still choosing each other." The baby came early. It was mid-June. The windows were open, letting in warm air and the scent of jasmine from the backyard. Emily was folding Liam's clothes when the first contraction hit. Sharp, deep, undeniable. She froze, then called out. Ethan rushed into the room. One look at her face and he knew. Hospital, now. They packed a bag in 10 minutes. Woke Liam, who sleepily asked, "Is the baby coming?" Emily kissed his forehead. "Yes, sweetheart. You're going to be a big brother today." The car ride was quiet but not tense. Ethan held her hand the entire time. His calm gave her strength. He whispered, "You've done this before, you're strong, I'm right here." Labor was fast, intense, raw. Ethan never left her side. And when the baby arrived, red-faced, loud, beautiful, they both cried. "It's a girl." The doctor smiled. Emily laughed through her tears. "A girl." Ethan leaned over and kissed her temple. "Welcome to the world, little one." They named her Hope, because that's what she represented. Not just a new beginning, not just joy, but the fragile, powerful faith that even after everything, after heartbreak, silence, doubt, and distance, Something good can still grow, something whole. Hope was tiny, soft, and demanding in all the ways newborns are. She cried at 3 a.m., slept in strange rhythms, needed them fully. But this time, Emily wasn't alone. Ethan was there for every diaper, every bottle, every long night where the world faded, and all that mattered was keeping their daughter safe, warm, and loved. And Liam adored his little sister. He called her my baby and sang songs to her in gibberish. He kissed her forehead like it was his life's mission. Their house was loud, messy, alive. And every day Emily woke up and thought, this is what love built. Not a fantasy, not a fairy tale, a family. One summer evening, after the kids had gone to sleep, Ethan took Emily out onto the back porch. The sky was filled with stars. A soft breeze carried the scent of cut grass and lavender. Fireflies blinked in the distance. Ethan held her hand. I've waited a long time to ask this, he said. Emily turned, heart racing. I know we've been through hell and back, but standing here now with you, I wouldn't change a single second. Every mistake led me here, to this moment, to this life with you. He reached into his pocket. This time it wasn't a key. It was a ring. Simple, elegant, timeless. Emily Carter, will you marry me? She didn't cry. She smiled and said without hesitation, yes, because she knew love is not measured by perfection. It's measured by presence, by growth, by showing up again and again. They married in the backyard that fall. Close friends, fresh flowers, Liam in a bow tie, Hope in a white lace bonnet. Sophie took the photos. Margaret baked the cake. Mr. Thomas gave a speech that made everyone laugh and cry at once. Emily walked down the aisle barefoot, holding Liam's hand, with Hope in Ethan's arms at the altar. And when they exchanged vows, it wasn't about starting something new. It was about honoring what they had already survived. I don't promise perfection, Ethan said, voice shaking. I promise presence, patience, partnership, every single day. I don't promise easy, like Emily replied, and I promise honesty, forgiveness, and to choose you, even when life is hard. They kissed under the string lights, and the applause was loud. But what mattered most wasn't the kiss. It was the choice they made, again and again. To love, to rebuild, to believe in second chances. Years later, Liam would tell his sister the story of how their parents met. He would say, Mommy met Daddy at a bar. He made a huge mistake, but then he spent the rest of his life making it right. And Hope would laugh, wrinkle her nose, and say, that's weird, but kinda sweet. And Emily would smile from the kitchen. Because she knew some stories don't start with perfection. They start with pain, with silence, with fear. But the ones worth telling, the ones worth remembering, are the ones where love doesn't give up. And that was the story she lived, the story she built, the story she chose, every single day,